Hello, welcome to Torque Transferred. I am Joy, founder and CEO of Boon. Torque Transferred is a new series we have launched where we take uncommon perspectives and apply them to outrageous challenges. It is my honor to have Trish Martinelli here, who is the Regional Director at Large of the National Security Innovation Network, also known as Ensign. In her spare time, when she is not making massive waves for the Ensign community, she is also the Executive Director of the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum. Trish, it's so wonderful to have you here today. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, I couldn't imagine a better way to spend this time with you today. So thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. So, hey, I want to dive right into it, especially for folks who do not know you. Who is Trish Martinelli in one headline?
Wow, in a tweet, huh? Well, I would say that I am an optimistic problem solver infused deeply with creativity.
Oh, okay. Talk to me a little bit more about that. Obviously, I know, and I've seen your optimism and make waves for the deaf community, which I'm excited to talk about a little bit later. But talk to me a little bit more about why do you think that you are the way you are? Like, where does that optimism come from? How did you grow up, and what influenced you?
Well, actually, I would probably point back to my high school career. So if anybody wants to do some like deep background, I went to a high school called Jefferson County Open High School in Colorado. Mm-hmm. And it is a really, really unique high school experience where there are no grades, no required classes, and no attendance policy.
Wow.
And yeah, I know, right? This sounds like every high school student's dream, but it really puts all of the responsibilities on the shoulders of the high school student. Yeah. So, for example, I had a community service requirement, and it's a little bit like a mini thesis. Mm-hmm. So I went forward to a committee and proposed living in a homeless shelter for 30 days so that I could really deeply understand the issues that touch people who are without homes, and come back and say whether or not my hypothesis of the reasons that drove people to that situation were correct. So I had to propose it, I had to execute it, I had to summarize it, and I had to really come through with what I learned from the experience. So that really gave me full control of imagining and creating learning opopportunities in my teens. And I've just carried that all the way forward.
That's amazing. I didn't know that about you. I love that. I had a unique experience in Eastern Market in DC where I was, I was walking in a hurry like we all are, and it was cold, it was winter. I had just gotten my small coffee and I was literally about to drink it. And this gentleman who was experiencing homelessness asked for the coffee, right? Just like straight up, like, can I have that? And I wanted to say no so bad because I'm so excited about that moment, right? And I looked at the coffee and I looked at him and I said, of course, here you go, sir. Sorry, I don't have anything else, because I quite literally had nothing else on me.
Right.
And he looked at me and he said, you know what? Thank you. You can't fake real. And that's all he said to me. And I was like, wow, that is so awesome. Because we had a little bit of a conversation, right? So it wasn't super transactional. And that always stuck with me, of this idea that you can't fake real. Like, just if you are authentically you, that does go a long way, even in tough situations. And it sounds like that's something that's really like followed your career, throughout your life.
It made a deep imprint on me. And, this may not be the case for every person, but my high school counselor that guided me through that, I always called him Rick when we were in school together, and I am still in touch with him to this day. So again, this was not just a passing moment. This was really an imprinting that has lasted.
I love that. That's so cool. And so you went to high school in Colorado. What part of Colorado did you grow up in?
Well, Jefferson County Open High School is now located in Lakewood. At the time that I went, it was in Evergreen, Colorado, which was just amazing. To get out of, the suburbs and city and to get into a mountain town every day was just a really special gift.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love that. I just went to Aspen recently for the Aspen Security Forum. My God. I was like, I get it. I get why people from
Right.
Colorado say it's the best state ever, you know?
Exactly.
I grew up in Detroit and our version of a mountain is like a little bunny hill. So but I digress. So I love it. So optimistic problem solver. It sounds like you had some pretty formative experiences where you could be creative. Was, you know, pursuing these projects for you, whether it was, you know, high school, college, so military career, you know, were you ever in a position where you were scared to be creative because nobody's ever done it before, or you know, you thought maybe this idea is like really dumb but I want to try it? Like what was that growth like for you from high school to now, you know, a elite professional leader that you are today?
Well, that's an interesting question because when I look back on some of my biggest career wins, it was that I stepped out boldly and
Mm.
spoke about an idea or a possibility or a creative solution. And oftentimes I did that when I wasn't aware that the social norms would restrict me from doing that.
Okay, so maybe naivety played to your favor.
Right. I mean, I was just actually telling somebody recently that one of the best ways that I got into the strategy realm
Mm.
of my career was when, you know, senior leaders at the Pentagon would have a big table, big cast of characters, and then there'd be what we call the backbenchers, the people who are supposed to take notes and keep their mouth shut.
Oh yeah.
I was in some of those spaces as a backbencher, and the person at the head of the table would say, "Are there any questions or any comments?" And look around the room. In my mind, naively, I'm thinking that they're actually looking for questions or comments. Um, so there were a few times in those spaces when I just spoke up and said, you know, I have the most obvious question in the room, but no one's asking it. And you know, knowing what I know now, I would go back and advise myself, hey, just keep your mouth shut and take notes. But at that time, I just took the person at their word that they wanted comments and questions. So I would do that. And once I think the awkwardness of breaking that social norm passed,
Yeah.
it was actually, for me, it was a watershed moment where I was able to put my kind of strategic thinking on display.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And that turned into
absolutely.
new opportunities and a professional reputation of someone who is very good at seeing how all the pieces fit together.
Yeah. What is the problem that you're most proud of solving professionally?
Yeah, actually, this is kind of cool. And it goes back to my role as the executive director of the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum. And I know that we slid pretty quickly into calling it DEF. So I just want to be clear for the listeners that we're talking about DEF, the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum, not the hearing impairment. So, you know, we should probably be clear as we're on audio. But so in the beginning of 2020, as the world kind of shut down and COVID really took a grip on us, I had a really formative experience in the summer of 2019, serving as an intern. For the first time in my life, I got to be an intern to Karen Petty Hold, as she ran a program that she calls Summer of Design.
Yep.
And it's a great program to certify people in design thinking through the University of Virginia Darden School. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. It was innovation and creativity and action, and there were phases and there were personality types and there were personas, and I just fell in love with design thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are in April of 2020, the world is contracting. And I thought to myself, if anybody could kind of crack open solutions to the problems we were facing, and there were a lot in early COVID, it would be Karen. She would know exactly how to do this, and we would be able to take Summer of Design virtual and really make an impact. And I was thinking, especially for federal employees that normally were in the office but were at home now.
Sure.
So I approached Karen with the idea, and after a couple idea sessions, because she wasn't at that point, she wasn't really kind of thinking about taking it virtual, and she certainly wasn't thinking about kind of embracing the federal workforce.
Mm-hmm.
But by June of 2020, we were doing exactly that. And it was with a lot of support, enthusiasm, and publicity, frankly, from the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum to the federal workspace. So
Yeah.
all of the people that worked at Naval X were there. We had members from the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum were there. We had members from all services, both uniform and civilian members. And at the end of that, we released back into the federal workforce more than 30 certified design thinkers that all went back into their offices in the fall of 2020.
Yeah.
And started really to work and, apply those design thinking techniques to solutions that were needed. Mm-hmm. Now, fast forward through the rest of 20 and most of 21, that federal federal employee design thinking seminar ran 4 times in a row, including with really robust participation from TSA and DHS that ended up in 3 different patents being filed.
Wow.
From the pitches at the end of these summer seasons of design, because it started with summer and then it went to autumn and spring. So that is what I'm most proud of.
Yeah.
Because it was really just an idea.
Yeah.
Like, let's take summer of design, let's apply it to the federal workforce. Let's release these tools to so many new applications. And I'm just very, very proud of that.
Did you ever, as you experienced that, were you ever like nervous for somebody to shoot your idea down or be like, this is stupid, this is never going to work? Did that ever did it happen, and B, how'd you deal with it?
Right. So yes, I was very nervous for a lot of different reasons. And in fact, this is one of the things that is so important about the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum is I was a federal employee at that time. Yeah. And I did not take this concept of funding and promoting the Summer of Design back to my federal workforce, back to my federal job at that time.
Yeah.
Because it was the culture of no. It was the culture of no, not now, not enough money. It was the culture of no. So I brought it into the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum, which has been the culture of yes for so many people in the national security realm that have good ideas, but they just need a sandbox to kind of explore it with it. Project Agitari is a great example. Started as kind of a thought experiment of a Defense Entrepreneurs Forum member, Daniel Holter, and is now a robust offering that the Air Force is fully embracing. I'm just so proud to see that kind of continuum of people in national security that have good ideas. They need a test bed for it. Yeah. They bring it to death, and then it boomerangs back into the federal workspace, national security for effect.
I love it. I love it. So let's talk a little bit about an outrageous challenge that I've gotten into many debates with friends, family, and professionals as of late. And the outrageous question is, can passion projects save the world? And I'll give you a little bit of context and color as to what we've been kicking around. But as soon as you said yes to being a guest here, I was like, I know exactly what I want to debate with Trish, right? So a lot of times I love how you define yourself as this optimistic, bold problem solver, and that why you are that way. And it sounds like even the problem you're most proud of solving with this virtual transition and building this community, all of that has this magnetic zipper of passionate people that are interested in the culture of yes, right? And therefore you're then successful. A lot of times people have told me and have told folks in my community that, oh, that's a dumb idea, it's never going to work, all these naysayers, which is fine. Naysayers are actually good. I like naysayers because it fueled my fire to figure out a way to get to yes, right?
Yep.
But sometimes those naysayers have been correct, where it is a waste of time and it's actually a distraction, and ooh, maybe I made the wrong call there, right? And so I've had a lot of fun debating lately. Are passion projects worth it, right? Yes or no? And if they are, if you're not sure if they're worth it or not, how do you delineate, if you should spend time on something? Let's talk a little bit about that, and then let's transition that to, could they actually make a meaningful impact in our world?
Right.
Yeah, let's go.
So if you start with the question, can a passion project save the world? I would answer that every significant advance and every significant change that we've seen on a worldwide level has been the crazy passion project of someone.
Yeah.
So you think about electricity, you think about flight, you think about, even something like a medical advance like antibiotics. All of these started as some crazy idea. I mean, typhoid, the big outbreak of typhoid was tied to people not washing their hands when they were doing food preparation. And somebody had this crazy idea that you should wash your hands with soap.
Logic.
Oh my gosh, these invisible things called germs. So everything that has made a tremendous impact worldwide has started as someone's crazy passion project. So can passion projects change the world? Yes, there is a demonstrated track record of that. So the second thing is, if you get involved into a passion project, is it only verified as worthy if you make a worldwide change? Absolutely not. Because every time you get into a project and you fail, you learn new things.
Absolutely.
And when I really think about my experience within the Pentagon, because that's the majority of my experience has been Pentagon, Department of Defense related. Every time I've tried to put an initiative forward and it's failed, I came back with valuable lessons of increasing shareholder buy-in, understanding how my initiative supports our mission, understanding the resource constraints that we have, understanding the importance of making a valuable pitch and having a so what. So every time things have failed for me in that regard, they were just learning points. I didn't need to change the world with all of it, but man, I'll tell you what, when I've gotten it right in certain areas, it's made a huge impact, and I've been very proud of it.
Yeah, well, and I know for me too, when there's people, there's something called the canvas strategy, right? And the whole point of the canvas strategy is the artist is nothing without the canvas, and both play an equal part, because if the canvas wasn't there, like, there's no way the art would exist, right? And if you apply that to a tactic that I used early in my civil service career was, hey, let me just make everybody else's lives easier. How do I clear the path for others to make their day? On the flip side, now that I'm further in my career, what I really appreciate is somebody who has, more experience than me, who is aggressively going to pursue whatever passion project they have. And you know what, when they do fail, obviously I'm not rooting for them to fail, but when they do fail, it's almost refreshing because they still cleared part of the path for me, right? Because I'm like, okay, well, they got to here. So how can I take all those lessons and help, maybe push it this way? And then maybe I failed that time, but the person behind me, and you constantly are laying that down, which I really appreciate. So moving a little bit to, can anybody be successful in a passion project or a problem, right? Especially in a highly regulated industry like national security. A lot of times people will assume that you can only be successful if you're outgoing, right? Well, you're extroverted and you have to have this magnetic personality, and you be super interesting and all these things. But I personally believe that that's a racket. And anybody, well, first of all, everybody is interesting. It's just a matter of how you package yourself, right? And sometimes that can be really uncomfortable. But do you agree or disagree on you have to be extroverted to be a successful entrepreneur?
Ooh, that is a great question. So I don't think it's binary. I don't think it's like introvert, extrovert binary, because I know that for myself, I have had plenty of people tell me, hey, play smaller. Don't speak out at meetings. Don't, do that. Don't ask those questions. So they try to shrink me down as an extrovert, as somebody who feels very comfortable in the spotlight, having all eyes on me. People have told me dozens and dozens of times, play smaller, tamp it down a little, Trish.
How'd that make you feel?
Well, it depends on the situation. It depends on the person. It depends, honestly, sometimes on my, kind of my personal self-confidence in the space.
Sure.
There have been settings where I felt 100% at home, very well appreciated, very well understood. If somebody came to me and said, hey, dial it down, Trish, I'd be like, yo, you don't know what you're talking about, step aside. But there have been other times where I don't feel appreciated. I don't have psychological safety. I don't feel like I have a rapport with the people around me, that if people come and say, hey, dial it down, Trish, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Okay, I will, yeah, absolutely. So sorry to have offended you. So, social media gives you a lens into people's lives.
Sure.
But one of the things that I'd really like to say is that, none of us are one-dimensional. Mm-hmm. And while social media kind of highlights our successes and our proud moments, every person that you see in a public space has those moments that kind of wax and wane for their comfort level, for their self-esteem, and for their ability to really fully contribute.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know that is very, very true. And some people are more comfortable being publicly vulnerable than others, right? That's a personal choice. So I recognize that. So going back to passion projects, there's a lot of folks that ask me for advice, and I'm sure you get a lot of advice asked of you of, hey, how do I start? What if I don't even know what my passion is? Like, where do I start to contribute and, feel like I'm driving value outside of whatever my title is at work, right? And I do think COVID, the blessing in COVID is it actually created space for people to start having a more well-rounded self, right? Yeah. Outside of, obviously all of us find identity in our work, like that is clear, right? And that's not a bad thing. But for folks that maybe are in an organization but they have this like hunger to be entrepreneurial, but maybe just don't know how to pursue a passion project, what is your advice to those people?
Well, this is an old axiom. You can always tell what's important to you by your checkbook and your calendar. Right? Those are the two things that will reflect to you what is the most important. Yeah. So one thing that people don't know about me is I am just completely obsessed and enamored with the life cycle of bees.
What?
Bees, like
I get it. I love that I'm learning this about you.
Yeah, so I have just a little simple patio out there, but it is full of pollination plants and opportunities, and I've got like a little nest for bees to come and like hang out and lay their larvae, so that like next season I'll have more pollinators around, right? So if I were to take a step back from my day job, and say, what's your passion project? What would you go after? A lot of it would be pointed to gardening, pollinators, ensuring, kind of a healthy bee ecosystem in my nearby area. So yeah, checkbook and calendar will always reveal to you what's truly important.
That is amazing. I love that. I'm going to go vet myself now. See, what do I actually care about? That's amazing. So you and I got into some discussions earlier prior to this call about the themes in entrepreneurialism versus being an intrapreneur, right? And I love that. I think that was very sound and astute perspective. So I would love to talk a little bit about that specifically. Once somebody vets their calendar and their checkbook and they're starting to find a theme, to be successful as any type of entrepreneur, whether it's entrepreneurial or intrapreneurial, you do have to have some sort of safe infrastructure to rely on, whether that's an entrepreneur saving some money for some startup capital, or somebody inside safe infrastructure so that they can be creative, right, and fail and learn and all those things. Yep. So, talk to me a little bit about some examples of great entrepreneurs, maybe within the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum, that have stuck out to you and some themes of what they're tackling. And then I would love to take a government example on entrepreneurialism, because I think that's one of the toughest things to do inside government.
Yeah. So maybe whenever I get into a conversation like this, I always try to set the table because I'm a linguist by background. That may be another thing
That's great.
that is a surprising thing, but I speak 5 languages. So I always try to start with a common definition.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say what is innovation, I take a definition from Dana Sanford, who was a colleague of mine at Ensign before he fleeted up to Heidi Schu's Innovation Steering Group in the Department of Defense. And he broke it down like this: innovation is something new that creates value but carries risk.
Love
And
it.
that third piece is really important because the Defense Department and national security has a different relationship with risk than the entrepreneurial and commercial community.
Yep.
So they have different relationships to risk because, it would really stink if you lose all your friends and family's money on an entrepreneurial venture that doesn't work. That would be terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But in the Defense Department, if you, take a risk, you could actually forfeit someone's life.
Yep.
And that is the ultimate tragedy. So there's a different relationship with risk, and it's good that there is. So an entrepreneur will find a product market fit and go after it with an offering. They'll do some adjustments. They'll try to get to scale. They'll have to bring in trusted partners and trusted private capital. An intrapreneur will be within a bureaucracy or a set, and their resources will already be defined. Right?
Mm-hmm.
The number of people you have will already be defined, and the budget that you have will already be defined. You can't go out and crowdsource a really cool idea for the DoD, which unfortunately, if we could, I would 100%. So, an entrepreneur takes different risks. An intrapreneur kind of carves some of the resourcing out of what they already have. They spend some extra hours at work. They get key stakeholders or enthusiasts to kind of help them and boost things along. And they transfer sometimes a little bit of their budgetary authority from here to there to see if something new will work. So, that's kind of the different framework between an entrepreneur and an intrapreneur, especially when you're talking about someone within the bureaucracy of national security.
Do you consider yourself an entrepreneur, an intrapreneur, or both?
I would say that I'm more an intrapreneur. And that is simply because since I graduated from high school, I have held the hand of the Department of Defense in one way or another. So 21 years in uniform, and then now, 14 years. Wow, that's a long time. 14 years kind of, fluctuating back and forth between contractors supporting national security and as a civilian employee supporting national security. So I am definitely an intrapreneur. Although, man, I'll tell you what, if I could be this person in my 21-year-old self, I would definitely be an entrepreneur. Definitely. Yeah.
That's the truth, right? For most everybody.
Yeah.
I love it. We'll wrap up here on one or two more topics. Trish, I'm curious for you to share with those who don't know your role, previous role in JIDO, that organization. I think that moment in time for the Defense Department, the problem we were up against, which I'll have you say in your own words, right? What that organization, stood up, rapidly attacked, and then the end result is a fantastic example that you highlighted for me of what does a win really look like inside of a highly bureaucratic system as entrepreneurs come together, right? So talk to us a little bit about that.
Right. So for me, JIDO was such a formative experience. So JIDO, it stands for the Joint IED Defeat Organization. And it was a response to just the catastrophic results that we were seeing in overseas contingency operations, both in Afghanistan and Iraq and other places as well, of improvised explosive devices and the impact that they were making on our warfighting mission. So I have to tip my hat to General Joe Votel. I think he was a colonel at the time when he started the Joint IED Defeat Task Force, which then morphed into the organization. And what we did there was really kind of break the old acquisition model and really infuse kind of the DNA or the thought process from special operations into classic bureaucracy. So if this sounds a lot like what we talked about entrepreneurs, there's a reason why. There's some common DNA there. So at JIDO, we would break the acquisition system, and really was very successful in starting things. So if someone came to us and said, we need a throwable robot that can go over walls and discover whether or not an IED is on the other side of it, we would go, cool, give us some specifications of what it needs to do. So that's capability requirements, not the requirements that are classic in the JSID system. And I'm sorry if I'm dorking out into specifications, but you know, in the classic acquisition system, there's a requirement driven thing. Like you are required to give me a fax machine. But a capability is, no, I'm just required to give you something that is capable of moving one physical document from one location to another location. It doesn't have to be a fax machine. It could be your phone taking a picture of it and sending it via email. Okay, so at JIDO, we really broke some of the acquisition things, which rolled over into changes into the DoD 5000 series, again, kind of working out an acquisition. So that enabled us to do rapid acquisition and rapid technology development, regardless of whether or not it would transfer ultimately to a program of record, which just changed the world. Because sometimes the solutions that you need only have to last for 2 or 3 years. They don't have to last for 20.
That's a fundamental shift in effect, right? You know, and as you describe the JIDO mission, I am now curious if JIDO is really the first X, right? So DIU, X, F works, soft works, like that. I mean, that is a huge precedent for what worked and didn't. And I can't believe I didn't realize it until now, really, that I'm sure a lot of that blueprint was, if it wasn't borrowed, it should have been. But to lay that down, what do you think?
Well, absolutely. And I'm going to have to give credit to some, you know, deep actors on this. So Secretary of Defense Ash Carter, 100%. Guess where he started? AT&L. Guess where the whole, you know, kind of lay down for the Joint IED Task Force started? AT&L. So like, you know, people who had their kind of fingers in the recipe and, you know, gave their command vision of what is within the realm of the possible shaped what we are building on now. So, you know, you hear this term all the time that we stand on the shoulders of giants. We absolutely do. I mean, Ash Carter, if you're listening, please hit me up, because I want to tell you what a big difference you have made, not only in my career, but in the Defense Department. I see your fingerprints on so many good things. So just Ash Carter fangirl right here. Yeah.
No, I love it. I love it. I started in AT&L when he was the under and Frank Kendall was the deputy. So
Frank is, I shouldn't call him Frank. Mr. Kendall is also one of my heroes, like big fans of that whole generation that just said, like, let's kick ass and let's kick butt and do this.
Usually I have a sign behind my head that says give a damn, so you can swear. It's fine.
Oh, I also have to throw in right now DASD Chris O'Donnell, who was on the Joint Rapid Acquisition.
JRAC.
Yes. Who, you know, has also been a driving force and is still, you know, there at the Pentagon with Mr. Kendall, just doing amazing things. So also Chris O'Donnell.
I love it. I love it. That's amazing. So, you know, I love that JIDO is this win example of being entrepreneurial inside infrastructure. And obviously, you know, no win once we see it play out was a win the whole time, right? I'm sure there was failures and adjustments and learning and in all of those things. And I think that you have a very unique ability to bring all these stakeholder wins, failures, different perspectives, and actually create a community to almost like flywheel your optimistic problem solving, right? That's who you are to me, as I see you, you know, step up and rise into the position of executive director for the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum. So as we round this out, I would love to you know, talk a little bit about your priorities and vision for the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum. And if there's one thing that we could all do to support you in your vision, what is that one call to action for the community?
The one call to action for the people within the sound of my voice is to explore how you can personally invest your talent in the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum. We are a nonprofit. We run off the power of our volunteers, and we have critical missions at DEF that are all lined up and ready to go, save for the fact that we need people in the seats rowing on the oars and doing this project. So I'm not trying to make anyone work 40 hours a week at the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum, because I don't even do that, but a little bit of time and talent from the amazing, incomparable members that we have within the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum, or people that are hearing this, people from around the national security community who aren't members yet, but would like to be. Hey, look, if you have a passion, we have a project. We've got amazing stuff coming up, including quarterly national events like the one that we're doing tomorrow. Our annual conference happens every year in October, and we've got so many cool things that are all lined up. We're just waiting for the right people to show up and say, I'd like to be part of that.
I love it. I want that on a bumper sticker. If you have a passion, we have a project. Right? I think that is perfect. Well, Trish Martinelli, it has been wonderful to have you on Torque Transferred. I love talking to people who have uncommon perspectives and really apply that to outrageous challenges, be it national security or otherwise. I have a couple of key takeaways that I'm kind of holding close to me. And one was actually a little bit of a warning, which was like unsurprising for me, or surprising for me, rather. And that warning was when you were breaking down these invisible things called germs, right? And I was like, wow, how often am I executing a process and I'm not slowing down enough to really investigate the invisible things? And those invisible things could be not being in the right community. It could be me not making space for me to think clearly, right? Or making space for others to think clearly and apply. Like, all of those metaphorically are invisible germs. And I was like, wow, aha. So thank you for that. That is amazing. And the second thing that I'm really holding close to me is it doesn't matter, who you are, your background, what you look like, if you have experience, if you don't. If you're trying to find something to contribute outside of your 9-to-5 or whatever your badge says, a great stop would be the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum to create some space and go discover. So I love that. And I love that you can find benefits in people who are entrepreneurial and super extroverted, and people who are introverted and entrepreneurial, or intrapreneurial and non-extroverted, all those different things. I think that you have a magical gift to bring those people together. So I thank you for existing and for leading, and thank you for participating today.
Oh, this is my pleasure. And being in the executive director role at DEF is just so profoundly meaningful to me. As the first woman that has been in this role, as the first Latinx that has been in this role, it just it says something to me that, like, the barriers that I thought were in place can be broken.
I love it. I love it. How do people connect with you, or how do we find you and get engaged?
Right. So the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum is online at DEF, for my military friends, that's Delta Echo Foxtrot.org. And anything that you think of following this podcast, or anything that you'd like to send my way, just type hello@def.org.
Love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.